Okay, so just to give you some background, I've been a relationship manager in the staffing team for a year now, and a couple of months ago, actually a month and a bit ago, I went to the exec conversation training held down in Sydney, where we were taught how to move our selling and pitch from product focused to solution focused, and also how to start talking more about the customer than about us. So I'll just walk you through what happened with one of my clients. And the background is that I experimented what I learned with a client of mine called Talent Design Potential, TDP. They were due for renewal in about a month after I came down from Sydney, and I decided to experiment with them. Before all this, they were about a 5-man agency. The inventory they had were 5 RPS licenses and 5 job slots. And during the year, they had asked me several times if they could scale down because there was a lot of business change. The person who was managing recruitment had stepped out, and the business owner had to step in to look after affairs of the company. So I had the central point of contact at the organization who was constant throughout. She was a power user, and I was told that she's the influencer. So whatever Lena decides is what we are going to implement. So my relationship with her was rock solid. So their investment was 5 RPS, 5 job slots, about 19K. And the situation, of course, was that they hadn't logged into a couple of accounts for a few months. And I had always forecasted baseline with these guys. So I was confident I'll get at least baseline with these guys. And I wasn't feeling too good about this, but not too bad about this. So what happened next? Now, after I attended the training, I realized a couple of things. One is that I'm having the wrong conversation with the wrong person. So Lena, who was the power user, wasn't the business owner. So she wasn't signing the checks. Yes, she influenced the business owner, but she wasn't the business owner. The second is all my conversation with these guys was about how much you're using LinkedIn. Oh, look at this, you've used it so much these 4 months, so let's extrapolate it. And it was very, now LinkedIn is cooler, now RPS is better. It was very product focused. And after the training, I realized that I didn't do a lot of big picture. I didn't really understand the business so much, and I didn't do a lot of solution selling to the right person. So, of course, I didn't understand what's happening in the business in terms of what their business priorities are. I knew day to day that, oh, there's one person who's left or another person who's joined. They've made a placement out of LinkedIn. But what are their plans for 2015? I had no idea. And it was the wrong person, wrong conversation, and everything was very transactional. In this meeting, I need to get this. In this meeting, let me do a QBR. So it was very, very transactional. So after the training, there were a couple of things I did. I realized there was definitely something wrong I was doing. So what I did was I straight away booked a meeting with the business owner. So, and she said, look, I'm not the one who decides, Lena is the one who decides. But then I pushed back and said, I think it's important for us to meet because if you're making such a huge investment, it's important for you to understand LinkedIn's ecosystem and how it can help you guys. So she agreed for the meeting. And the other thing I did was industry analysis. I want to spend some time on this. Now, when I went for the training, a lot of the time we focused on analyzing companies' financials, right? So balance sheet, income statement, investor analysis, etc. All my clients are private listed companies. None of them are public listed companies. So I was like, look, this is not really relevant to me. But then what I was told to do is pick up an industry player who's publicly listed because all his information is going to be available, and then use that information to make intelligent guesses about your client. So that's what I did. I picked up Hayes, Robert Walters, and Michael Page's reports. I studied their balance sheet, income statement, cash flow analysis, MD&A, and investor analysis. And the amount of insight I got was incredible. Right? So when I went through all this, there was tons of information, of course, but there were three underlying factors that was common to all of them. One was that revenues and margin. So revenues went up slightly, but margins had consistently dropped across all 3 players. The second was account accounts receivables went up. So accounts receivables are the credit terms that a company typically extends. That was going up. And the third was that revenue per consultant went up for all these three organizations. And what I realized was that all the big players had shut down their non-profitable branches in the UK, in Europe. So what happened was they were growing extensively in Asia. And Asia extends more credit terms business-wise. So that's how the accounts receivable went up. The margins were shrinking because a lot of roles were moving in-house, and there were a lot of economic factors that were influencing the recruitment industry. And the third was that revenue per consultant went up because they were opening up more strategic offices and closing down the ones that weren't making that much profit. So that was my analysis after reading all these reports. Then what happened? So this is what happened at the meeting. At the meeting, I made a conscious effort to do two things. One is move away from LinkedIn jargon, LinkedIn products, LinkedIn and me, and what I can do for you. Instead, I focused on the client. I focused on the big picture. So I entered the conversation by telling the business owner that I've done this research and this is what I've seen across all the players, all the big players, across all geographies. What do you think? And suddenly she was like, you know what, that's actually true. And she told me that they just hired a new person in the US. They've opened an office in Miami so they can cover that area. They're not doing any business in Europe, and that they're opening a new business line for HR consulting. Because she said, you know what, my margins are shrinking as well, and I'm opening up a new consulting arm in APAC. So that sort of completely shifted the conversation, because now we were on a common ground of both of us understand what's happening in the industry. How can LinkedIn help her get to where she wanted to? So this is the model we were actually taught during training, changing the entire business conversation. So there were external factors of what was happening in the industry. There were business initiatives, which she now shared with me because I had built that credibility with her. Then we analyzed what the current situation is, and she knew where she wanted to be. And that's where I came in my solutions, because if she knew what she wanted to do, she could go online and buy the products. My value add as a relationship manager is to connect the dots for her. So I sat down with her and made an entire plan which had branding, which had a lot of our products to get to where she wanted to. And the other big thing that came out of this was that my performance metrics conversation completely shifted. All along, my ROI conversations were usage, number of placements you make, number of candidates you add to the database, click-through rates. And now suddenly we were talking about things like, what impact does brand have on your business? And we agreed that brand is what gets you on the shortlist for clients and candidates. Brand is a scalable word-of-mouth business strategy. And it's not about the ROI of doing branding. It's the ROI of not doing branding. Because if you don't do branding, you'll remain status quo or even go this way. Branding gets you on this curve. So there were a lot of gray areas, but we agreed that some of them can't be measured. So that was a huge win for me when we were on the same platform. So during the meeting, what changed was it was the right person, right conversation. It was the business owner. We were doing strategic conversations. And the other thing we did was moved to solution conversations rather than just being very product focused. And as I mentioned before, my ROI conversation completely shifted. So what happened after I helped her connect the dots and bring this entire picture together? The result was that I built a lot of credibility, because she said none of her suppliers, vendors, partners, call what you like, but none of them had ever had this conversation with her. So she said, look, you really understand the industry. We should catch up quarterly and you give me feedback about what's happening with the market, and we can see how we can continue investing in you guys. So I built a lot of credibility, and this was the big win for me. My renewal came in at a 240% growth, which is 46K, and I had always just forecasted baseline, so this was a massive win for me. And the third was that I became a strategic partner. I wasn't like one of those people where, oh, you know, Meghna, this is not working for me, can you help me with this? And these guys are not seeing value, can you help me with this? But now our conversations are all about where is LinkedIn going? Where are TDP going? How can we marry the two together? And most recently I had a request from her where she's getting 5 of her top clients into our office, and she wants one of the senior leaders to have a conversation with them about the industry landscape. So that's pretty much the story of how I took up what I learned at the training and implemented it with one of my clients. Thank you.